She wasn't looking for love. Not in a worn-down shed miles from the nearest road. Not in the middle of winter. And certainly not in the tired eyes of a stranger with mud on his boots and a past he refused to speak of. But fate has a funny way of showing up where the roads end and silence begins. Elena adjusted the strap of her toolbox, pushing open the creaky wooden gate that led to the old shed at the far end of her family's rented land. The wind cut through her coat like a knife, and her boots sank slightly in the damp soil, but she kept walking. She wasn't here to complain. She needed the work. Single moms didn't get the luxury of slowing down. The client had only given a rough location. Old structure on the east side, needs roof and joint repair. We'll be there by the time you arrive. Except no one was there. Not at first. The shed looked abandoned. Half its roof gone, wooden slats barely holding together. But just as she stepped onto the porch, a cough echoed from inside. She froze. Out from the shadows stepped a man, tall, broad-shouldered, with a beard that looked like it hadn't seen a razor in months. He wore a heavy jacket, military issue by the looks of it, and his left hand was wrapped in a rough bandage. His gaze was cautious, unreadable. "I didn't think you'd come," he said, voice low and rough. "I said I would," she replied, eyes narrowing slightly. "Are you the one who needs this place fixed?" He hesitated before nodding. "Yeah, name's Cole." "Elena," she replied, extending a gloved hand. He didn't shake it, just looked at it, then back at her face, like he wasn't used to kindness. She could tell right away. He was one of those. The ones who came back from war, not quite whole. Something about the way he held himself, guarded and silent. The shed wasn't the only thing broken here. Still, she got to work. Hours passed as the cold deepened. He barely spoke, just handed her tools when she asked. But in the silence, something began to settle. Not comfort, not yet, but a truce, a beginning. As dusk fell, and they stood under the frame of a half-repaired roof, he finally spoke more than one sentence. "You've got a kid, don't you?" he asked. She blinked. "How'd you guess?" "You keep checking your phone," he said. "Moms do that." She smiled, tired but genuine. "Yeah, I do." That was all. No dramatic moment, no music swells. Just two strangers, both carrying too much, sharing a quiet truth beneath a crumbling roof. But neither of them knew yet. This wasn't just a repair job. It was the beginning of something far bigger, something rooted in secrets, healing in miles of land that would one day rewrite their destinies. If you like this beginning, make sure to hit like, drop a comment about your favorite moment, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful short stories every week. Sometimes, the strongest bonds aren't born from grand gestures, but in the quiet passing of a hammer, the silence between two breaths, or a glance held just long enough to feel understood. Over the next few days, Elena returned. The shed wasn't finished, not yet. But the truth was, even if it had been, she might have still come back. There was something about Cole, not in the way that made hearts race or inspired fairy tales, but in the way still water sometimes reflects the sky. He listened without asking, watched without judging, and somehow, without either of them intending it, silence became their language. He was always there when she arrived. Never early, never late. Just waiting. Sometimes with a pot of coffee boiling on a rusted camp stove. Sometimes with tools already laid out. He never asked for help again. He just made room for her. Elena found herself talking more than she usually did. Not about anything important. Just small things. Her son's habit of sneaking cereal at midnight. The stray cat her neighbor was trying to tame. Her old car's stubborn engine. Cole rarely responded with stories of his own, but his eyes, those weathered, storm-colored eyes, told her he was listening, really listening. One afternoon, as they worked in rhythm beneath a sky heavy with snow, she noticed his hand trembling slightly as he lifted a board. "You all right?" she asked, stepping closer. He didn't look at her. Old wound, nerve damage. She didn't push further, just took the board from him and nailed it in place. A pause lingered between them, thick with unsaid things. Then, softly, he added, "Some days are worse than others." She nodded. "Yeah, I know the feeling." They stood like that for a moment, not as worker and client, Not even as strangers anymore, but as two people who understood the weight of invisible wounds. Later that evening, the snow finally fell. Not heavy, but soft and steady, blanketing the shed and the hills beyond. They stood under the half-built roof, sipping coffee from chipped mugs, watching the white settle in silence. "It's beautiful out here," she said. He looked out toward the horizon, where the hills rolled like waves, untouched and vast. "It used to be," he murmured, "before I left, before everything changed." She glanced at him, curious, but again he didn't offer more. She didn't ask, because sometimes when someone lets you into their quiet, the last thing you should do is make noise. Some truths don't shout. They sit in corners, waiting for the right moment, or the wrong one, to be noticed. And when they do, nothing stays the same. The storm had passed, but the ground was still soft beneath Elena's boots. She arrived earlier than usual, hoping to finish the last of the roof before her son came home from school. She didn't expect the shed to be empty. No coffee pot, no boots by the door, no quiet presence leaning against the wall. Just silence. She set down her toolbox, called out once, "Cole." No answer. Her eyes drifted toward the tree line. Beyond it, a narrow path led deeper into the hills. She had seen him disappear that way more than once, always at dusk, always alone. Curiosity pulled her. She followed the path, winding through the trees, the crunch of frost beneath her feet the only sound. A few minutes in, the trail opened up, and what she saw stopped her cold. A second structure, not a shed, not quite a cabin. Something in between, the roof newer, the wood stronger, and near the door, fencing, thick metal gates, military grade. She stepped closer, heart thudding. From inside, voices not loud but sharp, radio static, words like survey line and boundary markers in code red. Before she could process it, the door opened. Cole stood in the doorway, startled. His face changed the moment he saw her. Not angry, not scared, just resigned. "You weren't supposed to see this," he said quietly. Elena blinked. "What is this place?" He stepped outside and gently closed the door behind him. "It's complicated. You're not just fixing up an old shed, are you?" He exhaled slowly, then gestured toward the hills. "That shed, that land, it's part of a larger property. Was my family's. Then the army used it. Now it's in transition." "Transition?" He looked down at his boots. "I was part of something classified. Remote defense program. When I came back injured, they offered me the land instead of a pension. Said it was compensation." Her eyes widened. "All of it?" He nodded. "Miles of it. Most people think it's abandoned. I keep it that way for a reason." Elena tried to make sense of it. The broken shed, the silence, the guarded eyes. All of it suddenly meant more. "You never told me," she whispered. "I didn't want to. I just needed help with that one roof. I didn't expect you to keep showing up." Something shifted between them in that moment. Not trust, not yet, but a door left ajar. Enough to glimpse a truth that changed everything. She took a breath. "So what now?" Cole looked at her, long and steady. "Now you know the truth. Up to you if you want to come back tomorrow." And with that, he turned and disappeared into the trees, leaving Elena standing in the frost, heart pounding, mind racing, and 1,000 silent questions hanging in the air. When people build walls, it's rarely for decoration. It's for protection. But sometimes, the ones who knock are the very ones we fear we'll lose if we let them in. The next morning, Elena didn't go straight to the shed. She parked farther down the gravel path, her hand still on the steering wheel long after she turned the engine off. She had barely slept. Her thoughts had looped through every word Cole said, every word he didn't say. Classified land, military silence, hidden truths, and somehow her. Why had he let her get so close if he wasn't going to trust her? She finally got out of the car, walking slow, unsure if she was even welcome. When she reached the shed, she found him there, hammering a board into place with his usual quiet precision. "You came back," he said without turning. "I'm not sure why," she replied honestly. He paused, then stood straight and looked at her. His eyes weren't defensive, just tired. "You want answers I can't give," he said. "I want honesty," she said softly. "Not secrets, not hidden bunkers in the woods." He set the hammer down. "You think I'm hiding things because I don't trust you," he said. "But maybe I'm hiding things because trusting anyone has cost me more than silence ever has." That hit harder than she expected. She crossed her arms, hugging herself against the wind. "I get it. You've been through things I'll never understand," she said. "But don't ask me to keep walking in blind." Cole nodded slowly, almost to himself. "I didn't mean for this to become anything. You were just supposed to fix a roof. And now I'm here," she interrupted, "trying to figure out if I've walked into someone's unfinished story or someone's lie." They stood in silence, a breath apart and miles away. Finally he spoke. "There are people who still think this land doesn't belong to me. People who'd rather see me fail quietly than succeed alone. That shed, it's not just a building. It's the first piece of something I've been trying to reclaim, piece by piece." Elena's voice cracked slightly. "So I'm just part of your reconstruction plan?" "No," he said firmly. "You're the only part one didn't plan." His words hung there, raw, exposed. But it wasn't enough. Elena stepped back. "You say you're afraid to trust. I'm afraid to waste my heart on another man who doesn't know how to share the truth." Without another word, she turned and walked away, the sound of her boots crunching across frostbitten ground louder than anything either of them had said. And Cole? He didn't follow. Not yet. Because even a soldier who's seen battle sometimes doesn't know how to fight for what's in front of him, especially when it's not an enemy, but a woman holding a mirror. Sometimes distance doesn't begin with footsteps. It begins in the silence after a door doesn't open, in the breath you hold waiting for someone to come after you, and they don't. Elena didn't return the next day, or the one after that. The shed sat still under a gray sky, half finished. A few tools she had left behind lay untouched. The quiet she once found comforting now gnawed at the edges of Cole's thoughts like slow rot. He spent hours walking the fences, checking markers, pretending the work mattered. But it didn't, not without her. Meanwhile, Elena sat at her kitchen table, a cup of tea gone cold in her hands. Her son, Jamie, colored quietly at the other end of the table, humming to himself. He had grown used to her disappearing into thought lately, asking less and less. That frightened her more than she admitted. She stared out the window, watching the wind rustle the dry weeds, the clouds shift. She wondered if Cole even noticed she hadn't come. Part of her hoped he did. Part of her hoped he didn't. Because if he had, and still stayed silent, then maybe she was right to walk away. She thought his words. "You were the only part one didn't plan." And yet, he had let her go, just like the others had. Like she was easy to lose. Her phone buzzed. For a second, her heart fluttered. But it wasn't him, just a message from work. She placed the phone face down, stood, and walked to the back door. She opened it and stepped outside, the wind brushing against her face like a whispered question. Across the fields in the far distance, she could almost see the faint outline of the hills where the shed sat. Still, silent, waiting. Back at the property, Cole stood inside the shed, running his fingers along the fresh which he had installed. Her handwriting still marked one of the beams in pencil measurements, scribbled in haste. A trace of her. He sat down heavily on the edge of the low workbench, pressing his hands together. He wasn't good with words. Never had been, but he had meant every one he said, even if he hadn't said enough. For a man trained to act under pressure, to push forward despite pain, why was it so hard to walk a few miles and knock on one door? Because this time he couldn't wear armor. Because Elena wasn't an enemy or an assignment or a mission. She was a choice. And he didn't know if he was brave enough to make it. That night, they both looked up at the same sky from different places, wondering what the other was thinking, wondering who would move first, or if the distance would become permanent. Hope doesn't always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it tiptoes into a side door, in the shape of a child's laughter, a warm cup, or a glance that lingers longer than it should. The grocery store was nearly empty, the kind of quiet that felt almost sacred after a long week. Elena stood in aisle 4, staring at 2 brands of cereal, not really caring which one she grabbed. Jamie was with her, bouncing slightly on his toes, clutching a small toy truck she promised him days ago. "Can we get this one too, Mama?" he asked, pointing at a second box. She opened her mouth to gently say no, when another voice cut through the stillness. "Let him have both." She turned, startled, and there he was, Cole, dressed in a flannel jacket, hair still slightly wind-tousled, holding a basket with only 2 items, coffee and nails. His eyes were tired, but softer than she remembered. Jamie beamed. "It's the soldier man." Elena blinked, caught somewhere between surprise and something warmer. "Cole," he gave a faint smile. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I." A pause hung between them. Not the heavy silence from before, but something gentler. Jamie broke it. "Do you have a truck?" Cole nodded. "Used to. Want to see my new one?" Jamie's eyes lit up. Elena cleared her throat. "We're just grabbing a few things." "I'll be out front," Cole said to Jamie, crouching briefly to his level. "If it's all right with your mom." Jamie looked at her with pleading eyes. She hesitated, then gave a small nod. The boy darted ahead. And just like that, Elena and Cole were alone again. "You could have called," she said. "I know." "Then why didn't you?" He took a breath. "Because I thought maybe you'd already made up your mind." "I had," she said, "but then I didn't." He looked at her, really looked. "You were right, Elena, about everything. I pushed you away because I thought I was protecting you from me, from what comes with me. I've never had someone walk into my life without expecting something in return. You just showed up, again and again." She looked down at the box in her hands. "I didn't need anything from you. I just liked who I was when I was around you." His expression shifted, something raw flickering behind his eyes. "I miss that version of you," he said quietly. She blinked, caught off guard. "I miss you," he added. "The softest words are sometimes the loudest." Outside, Jamie's laughter rang through the glass doors as he climbed onto the edge of Cole's truck bed, pretending to drive. Elena turned to follow, then paused. "You know the shed still needs finishing," she said over her shoulder. Cole's voice followed, steady and sincere. "So do we." And for the first time in days, the cold in her chest thawed just a little. Some are whispered in the way 2 hands meet, in the silence after truth is shared, in the quiet decision to stay. The sun dipped low over the hills, casting gold across the frost-kissed grass. Elena stepped out of her car, pulling her coat tighter as the wind curled around her. Jamie ran ahead, his laughter trailing behind him like sunlight. Cole stood by the shed, sleeves rolled, sawdust on his shirt, hammer in hand. He looked up as they approached, not surprised, not overly eager, just steady. She liked that about him. He never looked at her like she owed him anything. "Jamie's got his gloves," she said casually. "He insists on helping today." Cole smiled, nodding toward the toolbox. "Then he'd better get to work. There's a board out back that's been giving me trouble." Jamie saluted, then darted off like he was on a secret mission. Elena lingered. The shed looked different now, not because of the repairs, but because of what it had come to mean. It wasn't just a shelter anymore. It was a place where they began to learn each other, one nail, one beam, one hesitation at a time. Cole finally spoke. "I meant what I said. I miss you." She looked at him, quiet. "You said you're not good with words." "I'm not," he said. "But with you, I've been trying." She walked slowly toward him, stopping just a step away. "I've been let down before," she whispered. "And not just by men who left. By promises that were made too easily, too lightly. I don't want more words. Cole! I want weight. Something real." He nodded, eyes not leaving hers. Then, without ceremony, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small metal key. Old scratch code. He placed it in her hand. "What's this?" she asked. "It's to the other house," he said softly. "The one behind the trees, where I keep the things I never show anyone." She looked down at the key, her fingers closing around it slowly. "That's not just a key," he added. It's trust. And I haven't handed that to anyone in a long, long time. A gust of wind passed between them, but neither moved. Jamie's voice echoed from around the shed. It's stuck, Mom. I think the board is broken. I'm coming, she called back, eyes still on Cole. Then quieter, I'll use the key when I'm ready. He nodded once. I'll wait, he said. And that, more than any vow, any confession, was the promise. Not that everything would be perfect, but that this time no one would walk away too soon. Joy doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it slips in quietly, through a child's laughter echoing in wood, or a glance that finally feels like home. The next week brought clearer skies. Snow had melted from the shed's roof, leaving damp trails down its edges. The mornings were still cold, but the kind of cold that hinted at spring. A change, just barely there, like something buried finally breathing again. Cole stood by the workbench, measuring a final beam. Elena was nearby, sleeves rolled, her hands smudged with dirt and with oil. Jamie, as usual, had claimed the role of supervisor. Giving out pretend orders with a stick he declared was a commander's sword. You two make a good team, Cole said, glancing up. Elena looked at him, eyebrows raised. You mean me and the tiny dictator? Cole chuckled, a low, honest sound. It caught her off guard. She hadn't heard him laugh like that before. Not just a polite smile or an exhale through his nose. This was real, and it did something strange to her heart. I meant you in the shed, he said. But, yeah, him too. They worked in rhythm, no longer needing to ask where tools were, or who would do what. A quiet language had formed between them, built from repetition, trust, and days spent side by side. Jamie wandered toward the back corner of the shed and called out, Mom! Soldier guy, come look. They both walked over. In the corner, laid out on a flat, sanded plank, Jamie had drawn something with colored chalk. 3 stick figures. One tall with a beard, one with a bun, one short with a giant smile and a sword. Underneath it, he had written in clumsy, blocky letters, Our shed. Elena knelt down beside him, heart tugging. You made this. Jamie nodded proudly. It's us. This is our place now, right? She looked at Cole, unsure how he'd respond. But something in his face shifted. Not fear, not hesitation. Something softer. He crouched beside the drawing and, after a pause, added one small mark with his finger, a tiny heart in the corner. Yeah, he said quietly. It is... Elena didn't say anything. She just watched him, really watched him, and for the first time, he looked like someone who wasn't trying to disappear anymore. Later, as the sun dipped low and painted everything in gold, Elena leaned against the doorway, sipping warm tea Cole had brought from his cabin. Jamie was asleep on a blanket nearby, curled up in a coat that was too big for him, and Cole was humming, a soft, familiar tune. She didn't know the song, but it felt like something meant for quiet places. Without thinking, she whispered, You seem lighter today. He didn't open his eyes, just said, That's because I'm not carrying everything alone anymore. And in that simple sentence, she felt something bloom between them, not a grand declaration, just the warmth of something growing, something real. Some storms don't come from the skies. They come from the past we thought we left behind. 2 weeks passed. The shed was done. What had started as a shelter became something more, a place of comfort, of memories stitched into the grain of every wooden beam. Elena's laughter had echoed off those walls. Jamie had fallen asleep there more than once with a crayon in his hand. And Cole had stopped sleeping with his boots on. But then came the letter. Elena found it in the mailbox, damp from morning frost. A government seal stamped in the corner. She stared at it for a long time before walking back inside. Cole was sitting at the kitchen table, helping Jamie with a cardboard spaceship. She slid the envelope toward him. It's from them. His face went still, hands frozen mid-tape. Jamie looked up innocently, then returned to coloring. Cole didn't open it. Not yet. That night, after Jamie had gone to bed and the fire was low, Cole finally broke the seal. His eyes moved slowly over the words. Elena waited, heart pacing faster with each second of silence. "They know where I am," he finally said, voice quiet. "They're sending someone to talk. Not arrest. Just talk." "Do you believe that?" she asked. No, his reply was too fast. Too certain. Elena moved to sit beside him. "So what happens now?" Cole looked down at his hands. "I could run. Again. That's what I've always done." There was no anger in her face, only calm strength. "You could also stay. Let them come. Face it. You don't know what I did." "Maybe not," she whispered. "But I know who you are now. Jamie knows, too." He looked up, pain behind his eyes. "And what if who I am now doesn't matter to them?" Elena held his gaze. "Then it's their loss." The next morning was colder than usual. Jamie noticed the tension right away. Why is soldier guy not smiling today? Elena bent down to him. Sometimes even soldiers get scared. Jamie blinked, thinking hard. Then he reached into his toy box, pulled out his plastic sword, and handed it to Cole. "Here, you can borrow mine. It helps." Cole stared at the little blade in his hands. It was ridiculous. Cheap plastic, scratched and bent. But holding it, something shifted inside him. A reminder of courage, of belief, of home. It was a quiet morning. Too quiet. Even the wind didn't whistle. Cole stood on the porch, arms crossed, eyes on a long dirt road stretching through the hills. Elena watched him from the kitchen window, coffee in hand, the mug trembling slightly. Jamie played in the living room, unaware that today was different. At exactly 10 a.m., a black SUV crept up the road. Dust clouds rolled behind it like ghosts. Cole straightened up, but didn't move. His body had the stillness of a man trained to stand his ground, no matter what came down the road. The SUV stopped. Doors opened. Two men in sharp suits stepped out, not in uniform, not with weapons. But Cole recognized the posture, military, high-ranking. One of them held a slim briefcase. Elena stepped out quietly behind Cole. "You don't have to go alone." "I do," he said without looking back. "But knowing you're behind me, that's enough." The men approached slowly. "Mr. Cole Maddox?" The older one said, voice even and official. "You found me? We're not here to arrest you. We're here to talk." Cole didn't reply. The younger agent glanced at Elena, then back to Cole. "May we come in?" Cole looked to Elena. She nodded once. Inside, Jamie peeked from behind the couch, toy sword still in hand. Elena gently guided him to his room. The older man opened the briefcase, pulling out a thick file. "You were off-grid for 5 years," he said. "We know what happened overseas. We know what you did. But something changed. You saved people. You disobeyed unlawful orders. You walked away from a corrupt chain of command." Cole narrowed his eyes. "Then why are you here?" "Because someone in Washington believes you deserve to come back. On your terms." Cole blinked. "Back? To what?" The younger man slid a document across the table. "Your rank. Cleared. A new role, stateside. Peacekeeping. You've been given full pardon. And if I say no, then we thank you for your time and walk away." It was Elena who broke the silence. What if he says yes, but not alone? The agents glanced at each other. "That's up to him," the older one replied. Cole looked at the papers, then at the window, at the land stretching far beyond. His land now, his shed, his family. "I'll think about it," he finally said. The men stood. "You have 1 week." Then the offer disappears. They left without another word. Just like that, the past walked out the door it had entered through. Elena came beside him, placing her hand on his. "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I'm thinking maybe I stop running. Maybe I finally have something worth standing for. Some decisions don't come with a right answer, only the one you're willing to live with." The sun was high, but Cole's mind was clouded. All week, he worked the land harder than usual, fixing fences, res-tacking lumber, helping Elena with the greenhouse. Anything to stay busy, anything to avoid thinking. But no matter how far he walked, the offer followed him like a shadow. Peacekeeping. Full pardon. Come back. The words circled his mind, echoing every time his hand stilled. That evening, Jamie sat on Cole's shoulders as they fed the chickens. The little boy giggled and tugged at his ears. You walk like a horse. Cole smiled, but his chest tightened. He was building something here. Something real. With every beam he repaired, every sunrise he shared with Elena, he felt less like the man who'd fled war and more like the man who could protect peace right here. That night, Elena found him in the barn, staring at the folder the agents had left behind. You haven't opened it since they left, she said gently. I don't need to. I already know what it says. And I don't know, he whispered. Part of me misses the mission, the order, the purpose. Elena crossed the room and sat beside him on the haystack. And the other part? He looked at her, found something better. She held his hand. Then what are you afraid of? He paused. That if I say no, I'm turning my back on all the ones who didn't make it back. And if I say yes, I might lose you. You won't lose me, she said, firm and steady. But if you leave just to carry guilt, not purpose, you'll lose yourself. Cole leaned forward, elbows on his knees. They gave me 7 days. It's day 6. Elena stood, brushing hay from her dress. Then tomorrow we drive. You decide at the gate. The next morning, Cole packed a small bag. No uniform. No medals. Just him. Jamie gave him a drawing. Stick figures of the 3 of them standing in front of the barn. Above them, a giant sun smiled. That's you, Daddy. Jamie said. Cole's eyes burned. He hugged the boy close. On the drive, Elena said little. She didn't need to. Her presence was enough. They reached the quiet airfield where the SUV waited. The 2 agents stood near a jet. You're here, the younger one said. I'm here, Cole replied. The older man stepped forward. Do you accept the offer? Cole looked back at Elena. She nodded, smiling, not pushing him away, but holding the door open, whichever one he chose. He turned to the agents. I accept on one condition. I serve part-time. From here, I don't leave this land. My home stays my priority. The men exchanged glances. After a pause, the older one extended his hand. Welcome back, Commander. Cole shook it. But when he looked back at Elena, he knew he'd never truly left. Some men go to war to find peace. Others find peace and choose to fight only to protect it. 6 weeks later, the wind carried the faint roar of approaching aircraft. Jamie stood by the fence, toy plane in hand, as the silhouette of a military jet faded behind the mountains. Elena watched from the porch, arms crossed, the edge of worry hidden behind calm eyes. Cole had left for his first assignment 3 days ago. It wasn't war, not in the old way. He was part of a new coalition. Former operatives turned peacekeepers. His missions were limited, surgical, and short. No unnecessary fire. No lost years. That had been his deal. The truck pulled up the long gravel path just past noon. Elena stepped down the porch steps slowly, her heart beating faster with every step. Cole climbed out. Same posture, same broad frame, but something softer in his eyes. Not the man who once lived with ghosts, but one who had finally made peace with them. He wrapped Elena in his arms, holding her like a man anchoring to the only truth he needed. I'm back, he whispered. I know, she said, resting her head on his chest. From behind the house, Jamie burst around the corner, arms wide. Daddy. Cole knelt and caught him mid-run, lifting the boy in the air as Jamie giggled. You saved the world again? Jamie asked, his eyes wide. Cole smiled. Not the world. Just help someone keep their home, like we keep ours. That night, they sat around the fire pit, stars scattered above them, with crackling between them. Jamie slept curled up on a blanket, his head on Cole's leg. Elena poured 2 mugs of tea, handing one to Cole. So, she asked. It was different, he said. No orders barked. No pointless bloodshed. Just people trying to do good. He looked at her. And I miss you every second. She smiled. And now, I'm home. Until I'm needed again. But I'll never disappear. That part of me is gone. Elena leaned into him. You didn't disappear before. You were just finding your way back. Cole looked at the sleeping boy. I've been given a second chance. Elena, not just by them, but by you. She kissed his cheek. Then don't waste it. Over time, the town began to understand who Cole really was. Not just a silent man on the hill, but the one who helped rebuild after the storms, who taught the local boys to split firewood and respect the land, who held a child's hand when they got hurt, steady and calm. He was no longer haunted. He was chosen. Here, in this place, by this family. And though his past would always be part of him, it no longer defined him. In the barn, Elena hung up a photo, Cole, Jamie, and her, standing in front of the greenhouse. Under it, a carved wooden sign Jamie had painted. Our soldier, our daddy, our home. And that was a legacy he wanted. One not built in war, but in love, in family, and in the choice to never run again.